Hello, today I'll be discussing how you can prepare for an interview. Usually, when you submit an application for a job or for admission, especially for postgraduate admission, and you are being screened and found to be a potential candidate to be given the job or the admission, there is usually an interview stage where you are invited to participate in an interview. And then the purpose of the interview is to assist the recruiters or the employers get to know you better as a person. So it's an opportunity for you to express yourself and show your own uniqueness and what you have to contribute to the existing team, whether it's an employment or a research team or an academic team. So there is a way in which you prepare for such interviews, and they are not the same as the way you prepare for submitting an application or preparing your CV or your cover letter. They are a different interviews are a different part of the application process. And there is a way you approach them that help you to be effective and increase your chances of being selected or successful in the interview or selection process. So, what are the things you can do prepare for an interview? If you apply for a job or for admission and you reach to a stage where you are being invited for interview, how do you prepare so as to increase your chances of being selected? And I'll be discussing some of these things today, mentioning the things you need to do that will give you a better footing in approaching interviews in the future. So when you are invited for an interview, it means that you had already submitted an application, whether for a job or for admission. And when preparing for interview, it's important that you research the organization, whether it's an employing organization or an educational organization or institution. It's important that you research both the organization and the role which you apply, because some of the questions they'll be asking you will link in one way or the other to the role you are applying for. So it's important you research organization and the role, including the job description if it's a job. What are you supposed to do on the job? Because they want to see your competency skills and see if you have what it takes to do the job, if you are the right fit for the job. And when you are talking of interview, you are not the only one being interviewed, because if you are just a single candidate, they may as well probably just give you the job. But it means that they have other candidates they are considering. And you need to be outstanding and show that you are unique and have something unique to bring to the table or to be part of the team. You also need to reread your application, because sometimes what they'll be asking you, it will be picked or relates to your application, maybe what you wrote in your cover letter or statement of purpose, letter of motivation, or your CV. They may ask you questions about that. And these are some of the questions they want to know, maybe or seek clarification about. Maybe they read it and they really understand what you're saying, or they want to ask you so that they'll get a deeper understanding of what you mean. So it's important you read your application, and read your CV again, including your cover letter and statement of purpose. Reread them when preparing for interviews. And after doing this, it's important also that you prepare the questions you are going to ask. Because one way of showing that you're interested and you have researched the job or the institution in depth is by asking relevant questions. So at the end of the interview, usually they give you the opportunity to ask them questions. And when you don't ask questions, it is sending a signal that probably you didn't do a good job or researching them, or you are not too interested in the organization or the role. But asking them questions helps you to express yourself, and show them that you are interested in the job or the role you applied. So research the organization. If there's anything you need clarification, one or two questions, at least ask one questions, about the role or the organization. And also it's important you find out who will be on the panel, the interview panel. You can go to the website or any document available online or that is available that kind of link or give you an idea of who will be on the panel. Some may even tell you who will be interviewing you. So you can go and research about them and learn about them. Look at their interests. If it's a research, look at their research interests and the work they have done in the past. And maybe try and look at some of their publications. These are some of the ways to try to impress the panel and show them that, yeah, you are someone that is have attention to detail and is meticulous. So when conducting an interview, it's important that you maintain eye contact. If it's a physical interview, maintain eye contact. If it's a virtual interview, ensure that you keep looking at the camera because it shows that you are giving attention and you are showing participation in the interview. So it's important that always keep a good eye contact. Be natural. Don't try to form. Don't try to be someone that you're not. Be your natural self, right? Don't over push yourself. Just be relaxed and natural. It's an opportunity for you to sell yourself. Do your best in presenting your best self and your best foot forward. And don't over elaborate because time is always limited. You can overemphasize a particular subject and you may not have time to talk about the other subject. So don't over elaborate, no, or don't over decorate your answers so that it doesn't look as if it's artificial or it's exaggerated. So go straight forward to the answer so that you give enough time for the examiner maybe to give a follow-up answer or to move to the next question. So body language is very important and eye contact, as I've mentioned. Body language is important, eye contact is important. And when you're answering questions, you are the one being interviewed. Don't use we, use I. Even if you work in a team before and you're a member of that team, speak about what you as an individual contributed to the team, not what the team did. It's possible that the team accomplished a lot of things, but what did you as an individual contribute to that team that you were part of? So use I instead of we when answering questions. Right? It's also helpful to use facts, figures, and numbers where you can because it helps to quantify your impact. So if you conduct a certain project and outcome of the project maybe is empowering or educating 100 people, mention it, right? Give numbers, give figures to quantify the impact of your work in the past. And your environment is very important. So ensure that you're in the right environment. It's not messy, it's not looking unkept. And be mindful of time, I say. Don't over elaborate so that you won't lose track of time and not give the interviewers time to ask you further questions. And if there is possibility of distraction, maybe you are not in a very quiet environment, inform them ahead of time. Tell them that, there is possibility of distraction so they are aware of it. And make sure you have your notes, right? You can have your note aside. As you're speaking, probably you have one or two things you want to say and you couldn't remember. You can quickly look at your notes quickly and then remember what you wanted to say. So, what are the type of questions that you are usually asked in an interview? All the questions you'll be asked in the interview are classified into 3 or 4. And I'm going to explain them and how you're going to respond to them. The first one is the tell me about yourself question. It's usually asked in the beginning. It can come in the form of introduce yourself, right? Or tell us about yourself. But it's under the title, tell me about yourself questions. And it's usually asked at the early part. Sometimes the first questions to be asked, or most times the first questions to be asked. And tell me about yourself questions want you to express yourself and introduce yourself formally. So you introduce yourself, you give your name, speak about your educational background, and also speak about your work background. You have to be very briefed because, there are still more questions to be asked. And then after that, you also speak about your motivation for applying for the role or the position, right? So that is what they tell me about yourself questions to capture. Introduce yourself, your name, your educational background, speak about your work experience in brief, and then tell them about the motivation for the role. And every other questions they will ask you after tell me about yourself questions are classified into 3. Number 1 is a behavioral question. Number 2 is the experience question. And number 3 is the knowledge-based or technical questions. So for behavioral questions and experience questions, right, you answer them by giving your experience. That means you answer them the same way. Behavioral question is trying to assess how you behave in certain conditions. maybe under stress or under duress. For example, if it's a PhD, they can ask you that if your supervisors keep correcting your work and telling you you need to go back and repeat it, how will you respond? It's a behavioral question. How do you respond to a behavioral question? You respond by giving your experience, which means is that you make reference to a certain condition where you were under a similar situation and how you responded in that condition and what were the outcome. So if they are asking you a question about your behavior under stress, tell them about a stressful situation you had in the past, right? Experience in the past, and tell them how you responded and what was the outcome. That's how you respond to behavioral question. And for the experience question, they want to test your experience. Experience question is different from technical or knowledge question because they are trying to see your practical experience, right? For example, if it's about, let's say, an X-ray machine, they can ask you, what is your experience about on X-ray machine, use of X-ray machine? They are not telling you to give them a theoretical explanation of how an X-ray works. Have you used an X-ray machine before? What was your experience? If it's a certain process of executing tasks in a laboratory that you have used with certain skills, they want you to talk about how you use the skill in a real world setting, not some theoretical question and theoretical answers. And the last question they will ask you is the technical or knowledge-based question. And in this case, you respond it theoretically. For example, they can ask you, define what is a pronoun, for example, or define what is process of production of a certain product. Let's say the process of production of a soap, or process of production of perfume. So they are testing your theoretical knowledge. Or they can say you define what technicality in a certain subject is, or define what is evaporation, or what is photosynthesis. These are theoretical questions, and they are knowledge-based questions or technical questions. So you answer them theoretically. So the three types of questions, apart from the tell me about yourself question, is the behavioral question, the experience question, and then finally the technical or knowledge-based question. You respond to behavioral or experience question by telling your own experience and how you responded in a real world setting and what was the outcome. But for a knowledge-based or technical question, you answer them theoretically. For example, defining what is photosynthesis is theoretical, right? So these are the kind of questions they will ask you, and this is how you deal with them, right? So when preparing for interview, sometimes you get anxious and then you get nervous. And how do you deal with nerves when preparing for interview? Number one, practice the interview. You can set questions for yourself around that subject or around that job or admission and answer. Maybe you have somebody asking you and you answering, right? Number two is listening well to the question. Sometimes if you don't listen well, you won't know how to answer. And the key to answering the question is to understanding the question. So listen, have a good night's sleep so that you won't come tired and looking stressed. Sound preparation. I can never emphasize the process of preparation. And there is this strategy you can use in answering the questions. They call it the STAR approach. And STAR stands for, S stands for situation, T stands for task, A stands for actions, and then R stands for result. So if you're asked a question, mention a situation that happened and the task that you were given and what you did, and then the result. So the situation, the task, the action, and the result is the outcome. So when explaining the action you take, use I instead of we, as I've mentioned earlier. So this is one strategy you can use in answering questions using the STAR approach. A situation, a task that was given to you, the actions you took, the result or outcome of the action, and make sure you use I instead of we when answering the questions. And sometimes they ask you questions about your weaknesses. When you are talking about weaknesses, speak to your weaknesses in a positive way. And when you mention your weaknesses, ensure that you mention what you did to improve on the weakness and what was the outcome of that. Let's say your weakness is that you are deficient in a certain skill. You can say that you were given an assignment and you discovered that you didn't have this skill and you decided to enroll in a certain training. And after that training, this was the result of the training. You had an improvement in your ability to do that job. right? So don't just mention that my weakness is that I like most people say, attention to detail, or they keep on staying on one thing until they get it in the perfect sense. So they will say that they are a perfectionist. That's not enough. Perfectionist is a common weakness that people like to mention, but that's not enough. If you say you're a perfectionist and you regard it as a weakness, what did you did to solve that weakness? And after you did that, what was the outcome of that? So it's not enough to say that your weakness is that you're a perfectionist. It's not enough. You must mention the weakness, what you did to fix the weakness, and what was the outcome of what you did. So this is, in summary, how you approach an interview. If you have any question on how you feel we can improve on that, please put in the comment section. And also, if you have any area of clarification or area you want me to speak about in the next episode, write in the comment section. Thank you. Cheers.